Hello beautiful perception trainers community, and welcome back to another video where we're going to be talking today about what to do if you feel like you cannot access higher wisdom, or if you feel like you can't access that loving, compassionate feeling in the self-love meditations, or if there's just this part of you that feels like you can't access a higher perspective than your own, a higher love or compassion than your own. You feel cut off from whatever it is that we talk about when we're talking about higher wisdom, higher love, something that makes us feel that it's more than just us being bogged down in our own thoughts and logic and feelings and all that stuff. And so if you've been watching my videos on desire and on if God doesn't know the whole thing, how am I going to get to my my perfect potential, and or you've been practicing the meditations in the emotional mastery series, or if you're just kind of on a spiritual journey feeling like you are just on any journey, any healing journey, where you feel like you are accessing negative emotions and feeling your feelings and looking at your life and looking at your environment and looking at what you've been through and looking at what you want, and just not being able to feel that sense of hope or that sense of peace or that sense of I have access to something that's going to guide me so I don't have to figure this whole thing out. You just feel maybe abandoned by the universe, or like there are these special people who have access to higher wisdom and you're simply not one of them. Or yeah, you just don't have that capacity or that ability to tune into a love that's greater than your own. So you really feel like when you go into your negative emotions, you are the negative emotion is you, and there is no love or compassion or higher understanding outside of that. When you go into your pain, into your trauma, into your fears, you really just feel like that's all there is, and there is nothing greater than that. And then perhaps you feel like you're looking at your potential and you're looking at where you want to go and you're looking at your life, and again you just feel like it's just you out here and it's up to you to figure it all out. So the reason that I wanted to make this video, and really I feel like I should have made this video a long time ago, because I know that even for myself in these videos, I make it sound like so easy. Like you just go into your meditation, bring up your negative emotion, bring up your negative habit, bring up your negative whatever, and then just send it love, and you'll learn what it really is. And I know that I've made it sound maybe a lot simpler than it actually is. So if you have been feeling like, yeah, you're just frustrated with this whole thing and you don't know what I'm talking about, and again, you feel like you don't have access to this higher wisdom or this higher love or this higher knowledge that I'm talking about, or that other spiritual people talk about, I so understand you, and I'm sorry for making it sound like it's just this flippant, easy thing that you should just be able to do, and not really going into the idea that like this is actually a very difficult thing for most people. And I just want to make that clear, that it's not the majority that can just tap into this higher love or tap into this higher wisdom and feel guided and like life is for them, and there's something wrong with you if you can't, or you should be able to do this, and if you can't, you're just broken, or you never will be able to. And that is just not true. Okay, so the first thing that I really want to say is like, I'm sorry for making it sound flippant and like it's just this easy thing that we should all be able to do, because it isn't. The second thing is, we all feel disconnected at times, and I would rather us look at this more like varying degrees of feeling connected and disconnected, rather than some people are and some people aren't. So when we start to explore why we might have these blocks set up inside of us to not be able to feel this higher wisdom or access this love or anything kind of greater than our own logic or wisdom or sense of rejecting ourselves, it's not that some people are just not capable and don't have it, and some people do, and some people are, the people that do are existing in it all the time, and the people that don't just can't have access. Okay, that is not the case at all. I consider myself someone who's really honed. So I will tell you a little bit of my story in this video, just to kind of explain where I'm coming from, because I feel like that's a really important thing to look at in this exploration too. But as someone who has worked for essentially my entire life to hone this connection to something greater than myself, I still have times and periods and moments and days and weeks and months where I don't feel it, and I don't feel connected, and I don't feel like I have access. And just wanting to really make that clear, that there are still so many times where I feel just like a regular human, just like everyone else who's walking around lost, and I don't have a higher perspective. It just feels like I'm in my shit, and I'm in my shit, and it's just shitty, and I don't know how I'm gonna get out of it. Or it's up to me to figure out how to get out of it, and I don't have help. And so just if that makes it feel a little bit better, that like this connection to something greater is something we develop, and it's something that we hone, and it's something that we're all going to have traumas and things within us that are built up against it because of the very nature of being human. So when I'm talking about this, what we're talking about in this video, I'm not so quick to label it as hearing from God, or hearing from your higher self, or accessing greater wisdom that's outside of you, nor am I quick to say it's all you, and it's all coming from within you, and it's just a block you have to yourself, and it's just your internal understanding of whatever it is that's going on, like it's your soul, it's your connection to yourself that you're really going for here, that this, whatever this is. I personally sort of don't really care what you label it as, okay? If you feel comfortable talking about connecting to God, that's what I want you to look at it as. If you feel more like you're connecting in with your own higher wisdom that's already within you and you're just accessing it, that's great. If you feel that when you're in your self-love meditations and you're trying to love these aspects of yourself, your emotions, your self-sabotaging behaviors, or whatever it is that feel terrible to you, and you're trying to love them to bring your resistance down to them, if it feels better for you to think of that love as coming from someone else or somewhere else, that's great. If it feels better for you to think of that love as being your own love that you're now finally sending yourself, that's great too. I tend to think of it as both. That because we are an individual, we are a unit having individual experiences. And so to me, this accessing higher wisdom, this accessing something greater than myself, higher love, higher knowledge, whatever we want to call it, is both my accessing myself and accessing something higher than myself. It's more like having a wider vantage point than simply my little human vantage point from my particular experiences just based on what I've been through. It's more like tapping into the cosmic awareness, the greater awareness, the higher, the collective understanding. That's kind of more how I see it. But it, like I say, that doesn't really matter. So now, getting into the point of this video. If you feel like you can't connect, and like when you go into your love meditations, your self-love meditations, and you're trying to love any aspect of yourself that you hate right now, and you simply cannot. You cannot see any reason or way to love these parts of yourself that you hate. All that you see is how much they're causing you pain and how much you want to get rid of them. This video is for you. If you feel like you have a life dream and a life goal and things that you want to achieve and a future, but you don't feel like you can get there because you don't feel like you can access higher wisdom, this video is for you. If you're feeling just lost and hopeless, and that there is no love or guidance or acceptance or wisdom outside of your little experience, this video is for you. And so there are a plethora of reasons why we may feel cut off from this higher love and higher wisdom. And the first one that I want to explore is something that I think is probably going to resonate with almost everyone, and that is trauma. There was some trauma that happened to you in your life. And it's funny because these traumas can kind of go one of two ways. When we experience a trauma as children, we feel shamed for something about us. We feel we go through something that we really don't understand that is incredibly traumatic. Abuse, watching parents get divorced, watching your parents not be able to handle things for you, getting bullied, being sick, being treated poorly, being told that you're not worth anything, being scolded for being how you are. When we go through these traumas, it does seem like there's kind of this fork in the road where for some people these traumas drive you inwards. To when we're being rejected by our caregivers, when we're being shown that the love that we need and the support that we need and the care and the compassion and the higher wisdom that we need from our caregivers as children is being cut off from us, right? That can take us either into a place where we start to access it on our own. We start to seek that out for ourselves. We start to say, okay, my caregivers can't give it to me. I'm going to find some other way. Or we start to feel and have this sense that this higher love and this higher wisdom that we're supposed to be getting from our parents, because this is where it starts, or from our caregivers, is being cut off, and that's it. All right? So I was one of these people where the traumas and the love being taken away and the being told that I was wrong to be how I was and all of the shame and all the stuff that was coming at me from my caregivers drove me inwards. I personally started, I was born and raised in a Christian household, and it was my understanding as a child that I don't even know where I got this understanding, because it doesn't actually align with the way that my church actually was, or the way that any of my upbringing actually should have taught me how to think. But I believed that I should be able to hear the voice of God. And that was just a non-negotiable in my mind. That, like, of course I should be able to figure this out for myself. And if I was in so much pain and I was in so much turmoil, my body was shutting down, all of these things were going wrong. I was being bullied at school. I wasn't achieving what I wanted to achieve. I just felt like I was responsible for the world and not able to actually help or do what I wanted to be doing. And again, was being told over and over again that I was wrong and bad for being sensitive and being sad all the time and anxious and whatever, everything that was wrong with me by my caregiver's standpoint just made me say, okay, well, I should be able to figure this out. I should be able to access this higher wisdom. So I started, and that's the thing too, is like I don't really remember a time in my life when I wasn't like this. I just prayed a lot. I spent a lot of time in what most people, I think, in the New Age community now would say, prayer and meditation. That's what I was doing as a child for most of my childhood. I started writing in a journal my questions and expecting to be able to essentially channel an answer, even though I didn't know what channeling was at the time. I expected to be able to get an answer, that Jesus or God would answer me. And then as I got older, and especially with my health journey and all the things that were wrong with my body and doctors not being able to figure it out and all these things, I just took it upon myself. I just said, okay, I'm gonna tune into my intuition. I'm gonna tune into my body. I'm gonna tune into my awareness, and I'm just gonna figure this out for myself. So that was kind of my journey, that this connection that I have fostered in my life, where now I can sit in a meditation and send love to an aspect of myself that I hate and feel a sense of love that I wouldn't normally feel, and have these revelations and all this stuff that I experience. as being connected to God, or whatever you want to call it, is something that I have honed over time. Okay, so I want to make that very clear. When I was a young child, I felt like I couldn't hear God, and I couldn't hear this wisdom that I wanted to hear, and there was something wrong with me that I wasn't having that, and that was something I could fix. And so I literally went on my first juice fast when I was like 11 to try to, because right in Christianity there's prayer and fasting. So I just went on a juice fast because I was like, I should be able to hear God, and I can't. So there must be something in my body that's blocking me. And so just all of that, right? My sister, on the other hand, took the total opposite view of things. She, being disappointed by my caregivers and being cut off from love and not getting what she needed and not getting her needs met and not having, the love and the counsel that we're supposed to have in our parents and in our elders, the support, the helping you figure things out. She didn't have that either. And so for her, she just cut it off completely. She just went into this idea that, that's not real. God isn't real. There's nothing greater than me. It's just all up to me to figure everything out. And so she, I think in a lot of ways, thought of me as just being kind of weird and a freak, or that's for Allie, like she can be like that and she can hear God or whatever, but that's not for me. That's not my thing. I don't have that. And so she spent a lot of her life feeling completely cut off, and she went into a very deep and dark depression, just feeling totally hopeless and totally like life was against her and always would be. And if she couldn't figure it out, and if she couldn't do it, and if she couldn't get someone to help her here in this life, there was no help. There was nothing outside of herself. And that, I think, is the first thing for you to consider if you feel like you can't connect to God or to a higher wisdom or to higher love, is that were you cut off by your caregivers from counsel? When you came to them with your problems and with your pain and with your anxieties and the things that you were going through as a child, were you met with, I don't want to help you, this is your problem, or simply them not being able to help you out? Like it may not have been like outright rejection, but it could have been that they were having their own problems, they were going through their own stuff, they just couldn't be there for you. They couldn't help you through what you were going through. And so this started to imprint in you that there isn't a higher thing to look to. There isn't someone outside of myself to help me. There isn't a higher knowledge. I'm going to have to figure this all out for myself. And also to understand that that trauma is like a heartbreak. Okay, you experienced a heartbreak. We are meant to have elders, people who were older than us, who are there to help us through our traumas and to help us through the things that we're learning as children when we're completely new in this world and just not understanding why anything is happening the way that it's happening. That our brains are developing and our emotions are developing and all of these things are developing and things are happening that we just don't understand. And that is horrifying. Like, we got to kind of understand this, that a childhood in a lot of ways is a scary thing. You're just constantly being bombarded with all this stuff that you have no idea about. And when we're not held physically, metaphorically, emotionally, spiritually, when we're not given that tender, loving kindness of knowing there's somewhere to turn, someone to look to, someone who's going to be able to help us through our stuff, we can get into this very, very dark, heartbroken place of feeling abandoned and feeling let down and feeling like there is nothing greater than us out there to help us, and we're going to have to figure this all out on our own. And that heartbreak can shut you down to wanting to even look for that greater wisdom. Okay? So to really understand that if you were abandoned by your parents in this way, it may have shut you down to even pursuing, looking for it somewhere else, because the heartbreak of getting rejected or let down or not loved or not cared and not nurtured by your parents was so bad that you just didn't even want to open yourself up again. All right? So that's the first main thing that I see in this experience of not being able to tap into something higher. It could just be that, it could be that your heart got so broken as a child by not being cared for by someone older than you and someone who was supposed to be taking care of you and supposed to be helping you through your stuff. By not having that you just said, okay, forget it, I'm not going to open myself up to that again. Because it is a heartbreak. It's not just a survival, I'm scared for myself, I don't know if I'm going to be able to figure this out. It's truly an emotional need that got not met, and that's a heartbreak. So to just consider that first thing. Was your heart broken as a child? Okay. Second thing, were you shamed for something about yourself that you made mean that you are not worthy of love? All right? And so this is another really huge one that I see a lot in people, is this idea that there was something about you that, again, society, your caregiver, someone in your reality shamed you for so harshly, told you that this way of being is so wrong, is so bad, that there's something so fundamentally broken about you, and love got taken away from you by your caregivers, by the adults in your life, because of this aspect of yourself. All right? So especially if you grew up in a religious home, there could have been things about you that you were told, like, this makes you a sinner, this makes you sinful, this makes you fundamentally bad. And as children, again, we can take on this mantle of whatever it is that's being shamed or blamed in us by our caregivers, by our religion, by our schools, by our education system, by our government, by media, whatever it is. That is, you're being bombarded with this message over and over and over again, that this thing about you that you have that's fundamental to who you are, because you're a child and you're not making shit up about yourself at this point. It's especially in the first 1 to 7 years, when what you express really is little seeds of who you're supposed to become. And if you were told that, like, in the beginning, like in those very little baby seeds of whatever it was that you were expressing, even if it was rebellion or, right, just whatever it was for you, if you were told that this part of yourself is so fundamentally wrong and bad and you have to get rid of it in order to be worthy of love, that's going to be another reason you cut yourself off from higher wisdom, because you are going to have a deep sense that you are not worthy of it. You're not worthy of this love. You're not worthy of this higher wisdom. You're not worthy of this higher acceptance, which is what we're asking you to access in the emotional mastery meditations. It's accessing this higher love for yourself than what you have for yourself. And if you were so deeply shamed and told that you are not worthy of that love, that there's something so fundamentally wrong with you, that thing needs to change or be gotten rid of before you're worthy of this love, that again will traumatize you and make you say, I'm not going to go there. I don't even want to expose myself to higher wisdom or to higher love or to higher anything, because your experience with that is not love and acceptance. Your experience of exposing yourself to something higher or greater than yourself, like truly exposing these very vulnerable parts of yourself that are just baby, infant parts of your being, was rejection and shame and blame and being cut off from love. So part of accessing this higher wisdom and accessing this higher love and accessing this love that's greater than the love that you have for yourself is being able to see that there's nothing wrong with you and there's nothing bad about you, and it's seeing yourself from this higher perspective, that you are innocent, that you are pure, that you are good, and that you are worthy of love. even in and with whatever it is that's going on with you right now that seems so wrong and bad and painful. And so if we have this deeply entrenched belief that it is something fundamental about us, or fundamental about our pain, or fundamental about our expression, that's causing harm to other people, or making other people upset with us, or getting us cut off from love in any way, we're not going to want to expose that. We're not going to want to love that. We're not going to want to allow love into that place, because in our minds, this thing is the thing that got us cut off from love. This thing is the reason we're not worthy of love. This thing is the reason we're bad and an awful sinner. And maybe sin wasn't your thing if you weren't raised in a Christian, Judeo-Christian home. But again, it's this thing about you that's fundamentally why you were unworthy of love. And so if that happened to you, again, you're going to notice that you're not going to want to access higher wisdom. You don't want to expose this part. You don't want to love this part, because it is the reason love got taken away. You were shamed. This is what you believe is why you can't access higher wisdom. Okay? Why you're not worthy of accessing higher wisdom. Why you're not worthy of accessing higher love. And what we then do is we then start to work our entire lives to get rid of this part of ourselves, and to suppress this part of ourselves, and to deny this part of ourselves, hoping that one day when we finally get rid of it, we will be worthy of that love. We will be worthy of that connection. We will be worthy of that higher love and connection. And what we find is that we never get there. We never can actually get rid of this part. We never actually can get rid of this aspect. And so long as we're suppressing it and denying it and repressing it, it ferments, and it becomes our shadow. And then we have even more reason to hate it and reject it and deny it and see it as being the cause of our pain and the cause of our suffering, because it does then start to behave in immature ways, right? Because again, we kind of have to remember this, that whatever we expressed as children that got rejected, that wasn't the full thing that we were supposed to be. That was an itty bitty seed of what we were supposed to be. So that seed was supposed to be nourished and grown and fostered. What is this? What is this really supposed to be? And when it gets shamed and rejected, it never gets to grow, and therefore it ferments and it becomes our shadow. It becomes our self-sabotaging behaviors. It becomes our diseases. It becomes our bad habits and the things that we do to hurt others and to hurt ourselves. That is the part of you that got cut off. That is a part of you that was supposed to grow into what you are here to be and do, that got so shamed because it was labeled as wrong by your caregivers, that then became your shadow. So to understand that whatever it is about you that you are saying, this is why I'm not worthy of love, we have to start to shift to say, no, this is why I can't feel the love. I'm cutting myself off from love by so deeply identifying with this part of myself as being wrong and something I need to get rid of before I'm worthy of love. And again, I refuse to allow love in to this part because I don't want to love it. Because to me, it is the reason I'm getting cut off from love. So this is why the paradox of this is you realizing, and as hard as this is, okay, this is not easy. This is very difficult to do. And I want to make that very clear. So don't feel bad if this is hard for you. This is going to be hard for everybody. It's that learning to love and accept these parts of ourselves that look like they're causing us all of our pain is really, again, the way forward. And so if you can't, but to send these parts of yourself love that you have labeled and seen and have all this evidence for being the reason you get cut off from love, that's not going to be the first thing that you do. You're not going to be able to just love it. The first thing that you're going to do is you're just going to have compassion for yourself for the fact that you can't love it. That's the first part. That's the first scene, is just, I don't want to. I don't want to love and accept this part of myself. I don't want to make room for this part of myself because this is the cause of all my pain. This is why my caregivers rejected me. This is why the world rejects me. This is why I do all the shitty things that I do in my life and I sabotage myself and all this stuff. This part is the worst and I hate it. And you just say, okay, I have compassion for myself that I see it that way and that I feel that way. And that's the first step. So don't look to try to be able to love it, right? Just have compassion for yourself that you don't. Understand you have a good reason. And then start to see that again, now, part of the reason you feel so unloved and disconnected is not just because love outside of you went away because of this part. It's you have rejected this part now. You are the one that's cutting this part of yourself off from love for fear that it's going to grow and become something even more awful, right? That's the other underlying fear, is that we're scared to love these parts of ourselves that got ourselves cut off from love because we're scared if we love it, it's just going to bloom out of control. And I promise you that that's not really what's going to happen. When you actually start to love these parts of yourself that you hate, you will become this person that you're afraid to become. But you're going to take this journey of learning to love this part and allowing it to express and allowing it to evolve and allowing it to expand from its infancy, where it is shadow right now. And that's why I say I really believe that shadow is simply another word for immature parts of ourselves. It's an immature part of you. It's not going to express in its fullest right now. It's getting its needs met for expression and being who you are in a very immature way because it's been shadowed and not given the love it needs to grow into an adult aspect of yourself. But as you love it, it will grow into an adult aspect. Whatever it is that's self-sabotaging and painful and horrible about you is not going to stay that way as we love it. So we just start to have compassion for ourselves that of course we don't want to love it. Of course we want to reject it. Of course we see it as the cause of all of our pain, and if we could just get rid of this part of ourselves, everything would be great. But that's not really true. You're never going to get rid of this part of yourself. You're going to grow it, and you're going to expand it, and you're going to expand it through love. And that comes with the compassion. So it is stepping into this more adult view of I'm going to start to give myself permission to have compassion and empathy and curiosity about these parts of myself that I just outright rejected as a child because they were rejected by my caregivers, and then I haven't given it a second thought. Most of us have never even considered that maybe we don't need to reject this part of ourselves, that maybe this part of ourselves does need some expression, and it is good and it is right, and it isn't the reason that God hates us or that we're cut off from higher wisdom the way that we think that it is, that it isn't actually a flaw. And it was just a flaw to the system that we were born into, but that's not necessarily true. So again, a huge part of being able to access higher wisdom is taking responsibility for yourself and saying you're gonna start to question the imprinting that you were given, the conditioning that you were given. You have to question your conditioning. That is this thing really bad? Is this thing really the worst thing ever? And yes, I have all this evidence for how bad it is and how much it hurts me and all these things, but following it all the way through, what actually happens when I am this way? What actually happens? What actually happens? And then write all of these fears of who you're going to become. You kind of just, again, you have to have compassion for that. You just start with compassion, okay? So that's the second reason we can't feel love, is we were shamed for a part of ourselves that we've never been able to get rid of, essentially is what this is. And so learning to just have compassion, starting with compassion, and compassion for the fact that you want to get rid of it. Compassion for the fact that you've been trying your whole life to get rid of it. That this is a part of yourself that you're never going to get rid of, and you might hate that. Because it just means so much to you right now that you're never going to be worthy of love. And just starting to have compassion for that whole thing. And you're going to start to notice that you feel a little bit more love, even just in giving yourself compassion for the fact that you hate this part and you want to get rid of it and you can't. And how hopeless and terrible that feels. Just have compassion. Just start with that, okay? Last thing is we're trying to protect ourselves from disappointment. Because when we access higher wisdom, when we access higher knowledge, and we access this greater love that we have for ourselves and all of this, we're going to start to see our potential. We're going to start to see our path. We're going to start to have this sense of this being that we could be, this life that we could be living. Because that is what higher wisdom and higher guidance is there to do. It's there to help us see the roadmap, see the overarching picture so that we have a guidance to go down, right? And if we feel like our hopes and our dreams for a life being good have been dashed so many times, that we've hoped for things and we've wanted for things and we've we've had expectation of life going a certain way, and we were just constantly disappointed, constantly met with life not going like that, constantly not getting what we want, we're not going to want to access higher wisdom because we don't want to see the greatness. We don't want to see where we could go. We don't want to have this higher vision. We don't want to have access to all of these greater things that happen when we go into this place, because we are so afraid it's not going to happen, and we're going to get disappointed, and we're not going to get what we want, that we just don't even want to go there. That it's actually painful to think of your future and your brightness and what, like I say, what you could become and what you would hope to become. And again, accessing higher wisdom and higher knowledge and love for yourself and all of these things is going to stir up in you your own hopes, your own desires, the things that you want, and the things that matter to you, and the things that are important to you, and the things that you really want to develop, and that you actually deeply hope for and have all this emotion behind, right? Because again, that's your emotional guidance system letting you know that that is your path, that is right for you. And if we're just so used to the pain, we don't want to go there. So having really clear compassion for yourself, if you've just been disappointed by life a lot and by people, and not wanting to hope for anything anymore, just not wanting to access a higher vision and a higher knowledge and higher love because it's just hurt so bad every other time, that is another big place. We start with compassion. Just really have compassion that, yeah, I was disappointed, and stop writing yourself off, right? Don't write yourself off. Don't tell yourself you shouldn't feel that way, or you're silly, or your hopes were stupid, or you shouldn't have hoped for that, or this was all your fault. But if you notice that, again, just compassion. Compassion for that voice. It's trying to protect you. Compassion for yourself, the one that got so disappointed, the one that got so heartbroken, the one that got so disappointed by people and let down and hurt. Compassion, compassion, compassion. All right? And then the last thing that I want to say is that a huge part of this too is accessing our higher wisdom is a feeling thing. It's not logic based. It's based in our feelings and in our emotions, our body feelings and in our emotions. And we live in a world right now that teaches us to reject and deny our bodies, that when something goes wrong with our bodies, the body is broken rather than the body is sending us a message, and that all negative emotions are wrong and bad and we must run away from them. So if you are very deeply opposed to feeling your feelings and allowing yourself to process your feelings and talk about them and write about them and explore them, if you're very deeply opposed to your body and feeling very unsafe in your body because it's sick and it's hurt you over and over again. So again, we have all these good reasons for rejecting our emotions and rejecting our bodies because it's been painful. And we kind of get into this way again of the body is just broken if it's sick. And we also live in a culture where we're trained that if something feels terrible, it's more true than the things that feel good. And we should listen to the things that feel terrible and keep going in that direction and deny the things that feel good. And that's why we're all so broken. We have to start to self-audit that when things feel terrible, emotionally, mentally, and physically, that's a message that we're seeing and believing something that's out of alignment with the truth. And again, it's always going to be more complicated than just believe the other thing, right? It's to self-audit based on a negative emotion is difficult work. We have to explore, what am I making this mean? What am I really looking at? What's really going on here? Where's all the evidence that I have to prove that my thing is right? Now, is there evidence to prove that my thing might not be right? This might not be the way that it is. What's the thought that does feel better? Now, okay, I don't want to believe that because that's so ridiculous. Okay, why? All of these things, we start to understand that to access our feelings and to go into that messy world that's going to be a big thing that we go through for a while, and to access our physical selves, and that messy process is accessing higher wisdom, right? So it's all compassion. It's all compassion. So I hope that helped. If that illuminated anything for you, if you have any questions, let me know. Like, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. If you want more resources, of course I have all the resources, the Aliyah Mystery School, the Perception Diet, the Your Body is on Your Side program, which is all helping you access your higher wisdom, the Emotional Mastery, all that stuff. So I hope this helped, and I'll see you in the next video. Mwah.